Welcome everyone to the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative Quarterly Connections. Great to have you on the subject of managing a shared resource, working with our federal partners. I'm so pleased to have everyone. We have two very special presenters. Jennifer Rovanpera is an archaeologist with the Bureau of Land Management's Applegate Field Office in Northeastern California, where she has been working since 2013. Jennifer was instrumental in the dark skies certification in 2019 on the Massacre Rim Dark Sky Sanctuary in northwestern Nevada, and still helps manage the site, which overlaps a wilderness study area, which is something we'll probably talk about here today. I'd also like to introduce Matthias Schmidt, who runs the Night Skies program at the Cedar Breaks National Monument. He is the founder of Stargazing Zion and is a member of the St. George Astronomy Group, the Dark Sky International, and both American and European astronomical societies. He received his Master in Science in Astronomy through the Swinburne Center of Astrophysics at the Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. Matthias is very active and a key player with the Dark Sky certification of Springdale, Utah, certified in July of 2023. So welcome to our special speakers today. A little background on this program. The goal of the Quarterly Connections is this is an educational series in which we try to build community, to foster connections and broader collective understanding of matters related to the dark night sky and its management. And we hope with this forum, we can all learn and support one another and ultimately be more effective in our unique roles and mission. Thank you to my colleagues with the Cooperative and the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism at Utah State University for your support of this series and presentation today. My name is Lisa Stoner, and I am the coordinator for the Colorado Plateau and the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperatives. I have with me today Julie McGrew. She is the Chief Landscape Architect for the BLM, who is tuning in from the BLM's headquarters in Grand Junction, Colorado. Julie has kindly offered to be my co-host today, who will be helping me facilitate the Q&A session following our presentations. As a BLM representative herself, is really dialed into dark sky matters, and I'm so appreciative to her for helping today. So I'd like to transition to our presentation. So thank you for your patience and some of the background here. I'd like to introduce our speakers. First, we'll hear from Jennifer Rovanpera, who's joining from Cedarville, California. And after her presentation, we can take a few questions, and then we'll shift over to Matthias Schmidt, who is joining us from Laverton, Utah. So thank you both for taking the time and for this opportunity to hear from you. We will open the conversation with Jennifer. Feel free to take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop my video for a moment and then share my screen. Perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you for the introduction. My name is Jen Rovanpera, and I'm an archaeologist with the Bureau of Land Management in Northeastern California. And I'm here to talk about my experience with the Massacre Rim International Dark Sky Sanctuary. So a little bit of information about our office. The Bureau of Land Management Applegate Field Office manages approximately 1.7 million acres, with about 1 million of those acres in northwestern Nevada. In California, we manage lands in Modoc County, Lassen County, Shasta County, Siskiyou County, and in Nevada, we manage northern Washoe County and Humboldt counties. Most of the visitation to BLM lands occurs in the fall during hunting season. And we're just very, very rural in general. Modoc County in California only has about 8,700 people. And Surprise Valley, which is on the eastern side of the Warner Mountain Range, has about 180 residents. And that helps contribute to why we're such a dark area. We're in such a dark area. A little bit more about the county. Our slogans are the last best place and where the West still lives. And it's a big ranching and agricultural community with also a lot of federal government presence in the form of Modoc and Lassen National Forest, Modoc Wildlife Refuge, and the Bureau of Land Management. Demographics, it's a very conservative county, one of the most conservative counties in the state currently. And about 30% of the demographic is about 65 years or older. So it's also more of an aging demographic in Modoc County. And just to really emphasize like how rural Modoc County is, there's not a single stoplight in the entire county. We have four-way stops. We got flashing lights over one of them, but there's not a single stoplight in the entire county. And so before I jump into what the Masker Rim Dark Sky Sanctuary is, just wanted to point out that we do have other star parties and dark sky events in the area. If you see, what is that, southwest of Alturas, in the bottom left-hand corner of Modoc County is the Golden Gate Star Party in Aden, California, which is held in early July. Likely California, there's also a star party there. And then Lassen National Park had a festival that included speakers from NASA. But I don't know if that's still occurring these days. I believe the rec specialist handling that may have moved on. I haven't heard about it recently or since COVID. So back to the Dark Sky Sanctuary. It's located in northwestern Nevada, and it overlaps with a wilderness study area. And wilderness study area is an area that technically has the qualifications to become a wilderness area, but has not yet been designated or not designated by Congress. It's kind of in limbo about it. So this WSA is located in northwestern Nevada, mostly on the Masker volcanic plateau. It's about 100,000 acres in size, and it was identified as a WSA back in the late 1980s. So again, it is in just a very dark spot. See there's that dark blob, and that's where the Masker Rim Dark Sky Sanctuary is. It's a very dark place, but it's not the only dark place, as you can see. We chose the wilderness study area for the sanctuary because it already aligned with management principles, since we're already managing it so that it could potentially become wilderness. So those, again, management wise, it worked really well. And then there was no development in that area except for an underground pipeline in decades, and there was no foreseeable future development. So we thought it would be a really nice fit. Let's see, Villa, Nevada is the closest town to the sanctuary. Wikipedia refers to it as a ghost town, but there's still about a half dozen ranches in that area, and also the Old Yellow Dog Ranch vacation rental. Just west of the sanctuary, about 30 miles, is Cedarville, California, which is about 430 residents. Alturas, which is another 30 miles west of Cedarville, is the largest city in the area, and that has only about 2,200 residents. And then Gerlach, Nevada has a population of, let's say, about 21, except when Burning Man is in town, then it's about 70,000 people. The biggest cities near the sanctuary include Reno, which is about 150 miles to the south, Redding, which is about 160 miles southwest, and Klamath Falls, Oregon, which is about 120 miles northwest. So again, it's located in just a very dark rural area. So this project started in 2016. Our previous field manager had come from a field office in the Southwest and was very familiar with the dark sky programs, International Dark Sky Sanctuary, from what the Park Service had been doing down there. And so he thought this would be a great fit for our office because it was very dark and we have spectacular skies. I am an archaeologist, and I just kind of stumbled into this project happenstance. I had the training to oversee assistance agreements, which is not exactly a grant from BLM, but it's a way for BLM to work with partners and provide financial assistance. And we had already had an assistance agreements with Friends of Nevada Wilderness to remove uh, old fence lines and old troughs and things um, our field from areas in our field office and nearby wilderness areas. And so we thought this could be a great project to collaborate with them on. And so we discussed it with Friends of Nevada Wilderness, and they were on board, and that's how it started back in 2016. Um, so in 2017, Friends of Nevada Wilderness started doing data collection, letters of support, and producing the nomination package. And this nomination package was submitted in February of 2019. Um, at which point things took a slight weird turn on my end of it. Our field office had been working on this for, um, you know, three years at that point, 2.5 years at that point, and we thought everyone was on board. And when we were preparing the media release about the Dark Sky Sanctuary, it, for lack of a better phrase, set off some alarm bells. Apparently, at that time, BLM wasn't, or at least the people that were contacted about this weren't very familiar with the Dark Sky program, and so or Dark Sky places, and there was a lot of confusion about terminology and if the Dark Sky Association was associated with the UN, and so there were some lessons learned. We learned not to use the word designation. We use accreditation instead. And but everything worked out. And in March, the Masker Rim area was accredited as an International Dark Sky Sanctuary, which I believe was the sixth sanctuary identified at that time. And so, and then the following August, we held our first Dark Sky Festival in Cedarville, California to celebrate the dark skies. In 2020, we finally finished the dark sky interpretive panels and installed them south of the sanctuary in an area that is easily accessible by visitors. So the press release and media, again, because it was 2000, the BLM at the time didn't want to do our own press release. We wanted to rely on our partners to do the press release for us. And Friends of Nevada Wilderness said okay, and they ran with it. And so we got some great media and publicity about it. NPR did a segment. It was in the Smithsonian. So it was just great. And that actually saw a fairly large flux of visitors to the area in 2019 and 2020. We're a very small office that doesn't see much foot traffic, but talking to the local businesses, they think we probably saw about 500 or more people that first summer. And I know other people from BLM or Park Service are probably laughing to themselves about 500 people because, you know, for other parks and offices, that's what they see in a single day or a single weekend. But this was big for us. So it was great to see that influx of people into such a remote area. Um, so, and a lot of our, we were able to also share brochures and things about it to people, to visitors, by distributing it to the local businesses. So our local coffee shop and our restaurants and our bookstore actually also had the brochures for folks. And so that's where a lot of information about the sanctuary was shared. It wasn't actually, people weren't coming into the BLM office, they were actually going into the local businesses to find out about it, which is great. So yeah, in 2019, we had our first Dark Sky Festival. We chose it to be in Cedarville, California, rather than the sanctuary, primarily to promote tourism to Surprise Valley and also to make it more accessible for our local residents. Also, the sanctuary is just a challenging place to get to. It is amazing and I love it out there, but it's very challenging for vehicles. It's also a very dusty place being up in northwestern Nevada, and that's not necessarily great for telescopes. So we wanted to keep it very local. Events in the past have included a dark sky painting class, a trivia night, astronomy night, and a dark sky photography class, as well as a science fair. And all the events are free. So it really helps the community have more events in the area. And it's been a great thing because the local community, including the restaurants and the town, have hosted the events at businesses, the park, the high school, the fairgrounds, and even at our local airport. So in 2020, we were able to finish and install our interpretive panels. There's two, and they're located south of the sanctuary at the junction of Nevada 8A and the road to Masca Ranch, which is a BLM campground 3 miles south of the sanctuary. And we felt this location would be best because it's accessible by a lot of different vehicles, and it's also would see more traffic again. Masca Rim is amazing, but it is difficult to drive through in a vehicle. So the interpretive panels, the goals were to discuss the importance of darkness and how darkness is measured, and also some cool things that they might see out there. We even included an interactive star wheel on one. So some lessons learned from all this was that great partners are invaluable. Like I said, my primary job is archaeologist, and my involvement in the project really began because I was already overseeing the agreement with Friends of Nevada Wilderness. Um, and depending on my workloads, I can maybe spend at best about 10% of my time on this project. So this whole endeavor really depends on having a great partner in Friends of Nevada Wilderness. Um, Internal agency reception can vary depending on administration. When we submitted the nomination package, it was BLM, a lot, I guess BLM really, or BLM at the Washington office hadn't really heard of this. Now we have a different administration and we have, technical notes and all this guidance coming out. So, which is really great. Public reception can vary depending on the community as well. Ecotourism is a great economic opportunity, and the Dark Sky Sanctuary has brought in people to the area to experience it. But locals have, at least one local has expressed concerns about whether the sanctuary would somehow have um, create restrictions on private property. At which point I just explained that no, this is to promote ecotourism, and there's no restrictions on how much lighting or what lighting practices people use on their own private property, but it also provides educational moments to talk about responsible lighting practices. Our Dark Sky Festival is held in August of every year, and it can be hit or miss. Weather and especially smoke these past few years can be limiting on what can be seen and how great the astronomy night turns out. Also, the astronomy night in the summer is warm, which is great, but it doesn't get dark until 9 o'clock, which can make it limiting for some of the kids to participate. So Friends of Val Wilderness also does all of our dark sky monitoring and produces the report that is submitted to the Dark Sky Association every year. Um, they, I gotta say, beginning when we started this, we had about 12 to 13 points around the entire 100,000-acre sanctuary. And that takes all night. You can see the photo of me. I helped one time, and that was me in the morning, just exhausted afterwards. Um, Also, what I didn't realize going into it is that you think, oh, you have an entire year to monitor the sanctuary, and you really don't. There's only about 12 new moons a year. Half of the year, the sanctuary isn't accessible due to snow and mud. Uh, Includes cloud and smoke, and cloud cover and smoke, and really your opportunities for good dark sky monitoring are very limited. And so scheduling is important. Um, so more lessons learned is regarding ecotourism. Our local recreation and tourism board has really just ran with this and has said they're, Surprise Valley is now the gateway to the Dark Sky Sanctuary. So it's been great for local tourism, but tourism at the sanctuary itself is tricky. We are Bureau of Land Management, and this sanctuary is not a national park. It is very much an area where self-exploration is encouraged, but there are safety issues. We have very challenging roads that require four-wheel drive and good clearance and very good tires. Um, so when people go visit, I encourage them to stay on the gravel highways that skirt the sanctuary because there's less chance of getting stuck. However, we also have open grazing. So some concerns that have been brought up are, black cows on the highway at night can be a concern. We've also discovered that people like to just park in the middle of the highway to stargaze. And even though we don't have that much traffic out there, we do have traffic. And so that we've been telling people to not park in the middle of the highway. It's also just a very remote area, so if accidents do occur, there's very little to no cell service, and that people need to let other people know when and where they're going when they go visit out there. Um, so in consequence, we've just been promoting local areas as access is better and safer. Um, and it's true. The sanctuary is very dark. I think the first average reading was 21.76. But I did a meter reading in my backyard and it was still in the 20s. And so it's slightly less dark in Surprise Valley, but the roads are so much better. So I've been encouraging people to stay in the valley. Um, and overall, this just has great opportunities. As Lhasa National Park says, half the park is after dark, and we often forget about managing for darkness because our work hours are typically during the day. So I'm really glad that language and guidance are becoming more common in the BLM world. This includes the technical note 457 that was released in April 2023 about best management practices and the recent IB 2024-43 regarding dark sky place certification that was sent out in July 2024. So I said there's great opportunities, and I'm glad BLM is providing more information and guidance about it. And finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to Friends of Nevada Wilderness and Dark Sky International.
Wow, thank you so much. And I wanted to quickly make a comment. I didn't mean to overlook the importance that Friends of Nevada Wilderness played in this Dark Sky Sanctuary certification. So, and of course, Dark Sky International. So thanks for making that abundantly clear how important those partnerships were. And of course, where your role was then and now, maintaining the safety aspects and putting on the educational programs as you do. I also wanted to point out that, of course, we're talking about a rather remote site in the sanctuary in this very dark corner of the world. So we really appreciate the hard work that you're doing there and keeping people safe and knowing before they go. And it sounds like your activities with your annual Star Festival, it really focuses in the community, the Gateway community where you live. Yeah.
Yeah, no, to have the Dark Sky Festival locally in the community rather than at the sanctuary, I think really just encourages more participation by the local community, and that therefore we can promote more awareness and appreciation for dark skies here rather than for the people that would be willing to venture out to the middle of nowhere, basically, to experience it.
Right. You also mentioned that you have businesses that have really gathered around this as well. The economic opportunities, the sense of pride in your community. Can you talk a little bit about that too? How since the certification of Massacre Rim and Dark Sky festivals, your community has really shown a lot of enthusiasm.
They really have. And it's not because this is new for them. I think a lot of the people that grew up here or have been living here for years already know that the dark sky is spectacular out in our area. That's not news to them. I think there is an awareness of how privileged we all are to be able to experience as many stars as we do just on a nightly basis out here. I think it's just been really great to get the community involved and have, again, really just, we're a very remote area. There's not necessarily a lot of experiences for the kids growing up in this area. So to have something like this for them that is more easily accessible is a great opportunity. And if we can get more people to come visit, that helps with the economy here too. So it all works out really well.
That's wonderful. Are there any questions that are pressing from our audience? Go
I was
ahead.
just going to address a couple of them in here real quick. The designation, I think it just goes back to how it just depends on the agency, like how Jennifer mentioned the agency reception toward depending on the administration. And at that time, it was a different administration and designation was kind of not a great word to use. So we went to certification, and typically BLM does designations. We have like non-discretionary, which are the presidential, congressional, or secretarial, or we have administrative ones that are done through the land use planning processes. Yeah, and I think Greg Schein had a question about the interpretive panels, and there was also a question about the different SQM meter and how to collect data and how it is a workload to go out and collect that data overnight. And I think it was Derek that mentioned something about that. So I don't know if there's time, maybe at the end, if Derek, if you want to address that, and then maybe we can talk more about the inter panels at the end too. So just didn't want to forget you guys.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Julie, for monitoring those two questions there. That I think I'm going to go ahead and transition. Let's keep track of those questions. Thank you very much. And I'm really excited to also present Matthias Schmidt. We can just transition to Matthias, who's a representative for the National Park Service as a night sky ranger and a professional stargazing tour guide. So Matthias, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys, for joining this webinar. It's great to see so many people that are interested in dark skies and learning about this resource. And I think if you ever have run into roadblocks or feel down about your crusade for dark skies, the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative is here for you. You can always call me and we can commiserate. We have a right to clean water. We have a right to clean air. Should we have a right to dark skies? Maybe that's a question for us to ponder. But I've been with Cedar Breaks for 4 years. We just opened our new visitor center. I invite all of you to come up for one of our night sky programs until the middle of October. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And September 20th through 22nd, we have our Southwest Astronomy Festival with various events through Cedar Breaks, Cedar City, St. George, also in Zion. So come up if you can. Jen was talking about that in her area, she has 0 traffic lights. And I think I'm going to ask Cedar City to turn all their traffic lights at night to red to save our night vision. I don't think I'll get very far with this, but why not aim for the sky, right? So I'm going to talk about a few things for you today. A reminder, Tuesday, September 17th, we will have a partial lunar eclipse where the full moon will be covered by the Earth's umbra, which is the core shadow. It's just a partial eclipse, not very big, but if you're an eclipse chaser like I am, I'll take every eclipse. I'm going to talk a bit about the cooperation between Cedar Breaks National Monument and Warrumbungle, which is the dark sky park in Australia, in New South Wales, because managing a shared resource is not a responsibility just to manage the resource for the park or for whatever organization you work, but also try to find points to connect with others, with partners in your county, in your state, in the United States or around the world, because we all pursue the same objective. So when I was in Australia for the total solar eclipse in 2023. The eclipse was here on the western edge. I visited all the dark sky parks in Australia, which was Warrumbungle, which is northwest of Sydney, Arkaroola, which is now designated a dark sky reserve, and the Age of Dinosaurs, which is the dark sky sanctuary. Warrumbungle is a dark sky park in New South Wales. It's part of the New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service. And when they talk about national parks, all the parks are managed by the respective state. There is no federal agency that manages all the parks. So New South Wales is essentially a state park, but they call it a national park. They manage close to 900 national parks. They cover about the state of South Carolina. In those parks, New South Wales is about as big as Texas with 8 million people. And here's a little picture of their van, their vehicle, their truck. You can see here the front has what are called rule bars to protect the car against crashing into kangaroos. They're called rule bars. Warrumbungle was the first Australian dark sky park, designated in 2016, first in the Southern Hemisphere, and covers about 233 square kilometers, and the SQM measurement is above 22, which is very dark. Siding Spring Observatory, which is managed by the Australian National University, is part of Warrumbungle, and they have been the main driver behind making Warrumbungle a dark sky park and communicating and supporting management of artificial light in this area. They're one of the preeminent observatories in the world in visual and infrared observing. The little town called Coonabarabran is essentially a gateway community, and they have the world's largest virtual solar system drive from the Siding Spring Observatory. The dome represents the size of the sun. To Pluto is about 100 miles. I guess if you're as big as the United States as your country or continent, then you can make these kind of, scale models work. They have an astronomy festival in October. It's spring for them. They call themselves the Astronomy Capital of Australia. And there's a number of people involved in this collaboration, which is the area manager, the visitor experience team leader. They have a local stargazing club, and the director of the Siding Spring Observatory from the university. How does this collaboration process work? Like everything, it's an ultra marathon. In the summer of 23, I circulated the idea to them, Warrumbungle and also Cedar Breaks. This year, it picked up steam. In the spring and summer, we had several Zoom calls to garner administrative support, because everything in the federal government is a process, as you might know. September 17th, there's a Dark Sky Committee in Warrumbungle. I'll be presenting there. In Australia, you need the support of the department secretary and minister, which takes 1 to 2 months on average. For us, we need the support of the Office of International Affairs of the National Park Service, the State Department, and I didn't know that, the ambassador to Australia. So this will take maybe 2 or 3 months. I don't want to be overly optimistic. If we can get this International Dark Sky Park partnership announced before the end of the year, I'd be happy, and so would be everybody else. But this would be the first collaboration between international dark sky parks across continents. And I think the great thing is that we're in the Northern Hemisphere, they're in the Southern Hemisphere. So together we'll cover the whole celestial sphere. Coincidentally, the path of the total solar eclipse, July 22nd, 2028 in Australia, will actually go through Warrumbungle. So we'll be able to help and support them with ideas on how to manage total solar eclipse events. We in Utah had an annular eclipse last year, and April 8th, we had the total solar eclipse for us here in the United States. And to give you an idea how much of a nutcase I am, I drove 3,500 miles from Utah to Arkansas and back to see the total solar eclipse, and it was well worth it. I wouldn't want to miss it for anything else. Just to show you that I'm not lying, that I went to Australia, here are two kangaroos that work for Warren Bunkle in the park. Here you can see them on their lunch break. That's a joke, of course. I grew up in Germany. Don't expect you to understand my sense of humor. Local partners that we work with is the Shakespeare Festival in Cedar City. And this year they have a play called Silent Sky, which is a 2-hour play about Henrietta Leavitt. She was an astronomer at Harvard College Observatory, and her colleagues who were instrumental in some of the greatest discoveries back then in astronomy. So I'm doing a weekly 45-minute science talk, host a matinee show about the science behind variable stars. And we also do a weekly evening program at Cedar Breaks on Saturdays to talk about the science and look at some of these variable stars that are instrumental in Henrietta's work. So if you're close to Cedar City, if you want to combine stargazing and a little bit of art, I'd be happy to share my slides with you, and you can click on the links to get your tickets. Once I heard about this play that's going to be performed there, I reached out to the Harvard College Observatory because they have a collection of 500,000 glass plates that they produced with their observations over a 100-year period. And of course, they didn't want to send me a real glass plate because I'm a little clumsy and I'll surely break one of them, but they sent us reproduction plates. And I'm holding one of the reproduction plates. And they sent us these films, which you can turn into fly spankers. These fly spankers are reference glasses with known magnitudes of stars so that the computers, which the female astronomers were called derogatorily, used to determine the magnitudes on these photographic plates. And, it's another example you can always find, if opportunities are presented, there's many different ways to collaborate with other partners to bring a little bit more palpable astronomy to people. And we share those reproduction plates with the SUU's Ashcroft Observatory. This is Dr. Cameron Pace. He runs the observatory, and he also does astronomy courses at SUU. Here are the links for you guys. I can share my slides with you. And this morning I was at 2 elementary schools in Cedar City. I visit them every fall, talk about astronomy, and hand out the 4th grade passes, every kid outdoors. And I always ask the question about Earth being flat. And I ask 160 kids, 4th graders, and everybody knows that the Earth is round and not flat like the Flat Earth Society proclaims. So something must happen between 4th grade and adolescence. I'm not sure yet what that is, but maybe some of you can give me some insight on what I can do as an educator to help people understand that the Earth is flat, not flat. See, there you go. Be happy to hear your thoughts and get some insight from you.
Yes, thank you so much. This is great. Those are really exciting examples of partnerships, both right in your hometown, working with the schools and working with the communities, and your international connections are just fabulous. So thanks for some of those details and updates to those of us who've heard a little bit about your work down there. So I think that's exciting. Your twin dark sky places. I'd like to make sure that people get their questions answered. I would love to ask you a little more about, your work in your community and raising awareness, since you are very active both as a business owner and a stargazing guide for the park. So you represent 2 really important roles. So I just want to point that out, that you see both sides of this partnership, let's say, inside parks, outside of parks.
I've yet to meet a person that is not inspired or in awe by the night sky. Whether it's public programs or stargazing tours, It's, just like Jen mentioned in her presentation that, 80% of the people in the United States have never seen the Milky Way. And it's there for us to take advantage of, to see this, connection, to make us feel like we're part of something bigger. Some people call it inspiration. Whatever methods or tools I can use or partners to find to bring people out to enjoy the night sky. And then kind of, weave in that we can all do something really simple to curb the artificial light that we produce. It's one of the types of pollution that can be taken care of the easiest. And when people come up and see the glow from the neighboring cities, they get kind of the idea that, the lights that you see aren't properly shielded. That's something simple that we can do as a community. And it's hard to convince locals to do something, but one person at a time, I think, is a good rate.
Does anyone in our audience have any comments about working within your communities or partnerships you'd like to share and kind of adding to this discussion? I'd love to hear from you. Matthias, Jennifer, either one of you, do you have any particular advice for our audience, things that you feel have been a good message that really resonates, or approach for bridging from the park or the federal lands to the community? If there are any best practices that you would recommend?
I would say being up in like northeastern California in a rural conservative area who might not have their absolute trust in the federal government. It's really important to have a conversation with them rather than just talk at them. Like there's also got to be some level of respect that if they have lights on, they probably have a reason for lights on. They're having no lights on. So then trying to find common ground and just have small moments where you can talk about responsible lighting, I think is really the important thing, because if you just start talking at people, they're gonna, at best just ignore you.
Good point.
Yeah, very good point. To find common ground, right? In our polarized society, lots of conversations are polarized, unfortunately. But I think to find a common ground is a really good approach. And one of my ranger friends told me, "You don't lie about the facts. You can lie about your feelings, but don't lie about the facts." So I try to combine facts with feelings, and I try to combine facts with observations. When you look at this, because astronomy, first and foremost, has been and is an observational science. What do you observe? You see these lights down there in the valley. Is there something we can do to curb that artificial light? So little things, I think, go a long way, and Jen is correct in finding common ground.
I think the easiest common ground is those just awful, like, cool color LED lights that just are blinding when you're driving down the road. People's headlights, like, I think everyone can agree those are the worst headlights. And like just finding those little like common ground things, and they're like, use warm lighting methods or warm lights, and it works out for everyone, including us, not just animals. Little things like that, I think we can all agree on.
I'd like to bring in an element to this discussion about the process of becoming, part of the conversation is just bringing awareness. If there's a community that wants to become a dark sky place or a federal landscape of some kind, BLM, state park, national park, tribal lands. Julie and I were discussing this before this session today about knowing not only who are your champions and who can really resonate with the community, but knowing what are the policies or what kinds of factors may already be at work. So if Julia, I wonder if you wanted to share a little bit about starting small, knowing the area, the policies that might be in place for potential momentum, to build momentum in an area.
Sure. And I think this is kind of directed to anybody that lives in a small community or is really tight knit community. But like BLM people, the lands, your community, the people, but just looking at your local, like what is your local zoning, your local ordinances, do they have anything that promotes, responsible outdoor lighting? And then also look at the state level. There may be state laws. There's several states that have laws, although they're pretty generalized, but from those, if you are aware of what's in your local area, you can maybe build on some of the momentum because there's already some things in place. But if there may not be things in place, maybe you can help with outreach and education to where you can get some of those things in place.
Oh, thanks, Julie. I think that's really important. If anyone has any comments on that, I'd love to hear. I'm looking at some of the questions. The most recent one that came through was HOA awareness for homeowners, how to inform homeowners about dark sky awareness. I know Mike Reimer's on the call here today from Dark Sky International, and many state dark sky chapter leads are here as well. So I appreciate you being here. I think perhaps going to Dark Sky International would be a good source for more information, and certainly reaching out to some of the folks on this call. And I see that Michael, perhaps he could share his contact information for as a Western representative for Dark Sky International. Does anyone else have any comments on that?
I was just going to say, Pam had a question about getting assistance, and not having capacity to, understaffed, and how much time it takes to get the application process. I think Colorado has also like a state law where they're promoting like mentoring programs for the application process. And maybe Michael can address that a little better too.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. Let me turn my camera on here. Yeah, Colorado has, and Aaron Watson is actually on this call too. He might be able to give a little bit more insight as he kind of runs this program here in the state for Dark Sky Place mentorship that has been given through some resources through state bills. But yeah, I mean, the state of Colorado is doing a lot of amazing things for Dark Sky Places, and it just shows tremendous support from state leadership all the way down to local government leaderships. So that's why the state currently has probably some of the most, if not the most, current applicants in our pipeline. So I'd say Colorado is a great place to look at. I mean, this entire region, though, is truly a shining star, if I can be punny, in how Dark Sky Place pursuits are so strong. And I want to thank everybody here on the call, Matthias and Julie, for being our latest examples of success in that. I put my contact info here in the chat too. I don't want to take up too much of the rest of our time, but if you have any questions about the program itself, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I'm going to point out that, as you've heard from Jennifer today, with Masquerim being a wilderness study area is a great opportunity. It's kind of a win-win in that there's research. It's a naturally protected area. So, and one strategy to build a dark sky area or protecting a broader swath of sky, going in incremental steps, looking at it kind of from a regional perspective, and finding partners that have kind of worked through the ropes. So just kind of pointing out a couple of those other strategic approaches as well. Let's see, there were a couple of questions that were addressed earlier today. So where Derek Wallentensen, pardon me for your last name, mentioning any consideration of the SQM units in your areas. Derek, perhaps you could explain your question a little more.
Sure, no problem at all. So I'm in New Mexico with the Mexico Dark Sky chapter here in New Mexico, and indeed, retired Park Service Ranger, and been several successful park applications. And one thing I'm trying to urge entities that have a DSP status, be it a designation or whatever, to get these continuous monitors. Often they can be an easier solution. So for example, we have one in the southwestern part of New Mexico that has one of these. That's the Cosmic Campground, and they can save data continuously. They run continuously. They're solar powered, and it's a good way for those places that are harder to reach to get that data that's necessary for maintaining the dark sky place status. So something to think about. You know, the meters are great, the handheld ones to start out with, but on a long-term basis, especially if you can get funding for them, they're about $400. That's something to consider.
Oh, that's a great comment. Thank you, Derek, for explaining. And it's great to have you on here. Nice to have you. And I was really hoping to hear a little bit about Cosmic Campground, US Forest Service property. So I had reached out to some of the park rangers out there and wasn't able to get a hold of them directly. So thank you for representing that corner of the world.
Sure, please contact me if you have questions about that. We've taken over the annual reports from the Forest Service on that, but still work with them for Cosmic.
Wonderful. I see Bill Kowalik. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, yeah, just I'd like to sort of augment what Derek's comment was regarding the recording sky quality meters. And I'm with Dark Sky Oregon, and we have 52 of the recording meters running around Oregon, and we have volunteers who email the data in. However, typically, each of our proposed dark sky places is larger than can be sampled by 1 meter. So in addition, we also have handheld meters and that sort of handheld program going in places where people are working to be certified as a park or a community. So the meter by itself in one place is typically inadequate to characterize the whole area. Thanks.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Bill, for sharing that. Yeah, you've done a lot of work reporting, and I appreciate all your hard work in this realm. If we have any questions that are still pending, make sure we get all their questions answered that are in the chat. If we've indeed missed any, or if you want to send some, we can have those addressed after this. I do want to make sure that you are all prepared to join us again in December when we have our next quarterly connections, which will be focused on cultural connections with the night sky. So I'm excited for that. And lastly, we'd love to hear your comments about the quarterly connections today. And a sincere thanks to our presenters today. Matthias, thank you. Jennifer, thank you so much. And Julie, thank you for co-hosting with me today. So we're at the top of the hour. Many thanks to everyone for being here and all your hard work. I hope we can see you again soon in December. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.